And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Harold, who remembers everything that happened before he was born. In the space before incarnation, he witnessed the earth not as a gentle cradle of life, but as a dark, churning realm, a place that stirred both dread and deep purpose. Harold, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff.
Harold, did you have some sort of event in your life, like an NDE, that gave you the ability to remember the past, or were you just born this way?
Born this way. It is essentially something that's always been with me. That's when I tell people about this story, that's basically how I started off. I tell them, first and foremost, it's not a memory. It was a direct experience. And it's always been with me. And that's sort of hard to really describe because, of course, I would sort of forget that it happened. And that's because I was in a human body. I was a child. So I was just experiencing the world and going through the motions, hitting milestones. But it has always been there, always. So, again, something that's really hard to describe. And again, it was an experience. So this is completely different than a memory or a dream. You know the difference between a dream, right? And your waking hours, the difference. That place is so real that this physical reality feels like the dream. So that's another kind of analogy I like to use when trying to describe this.
Were you born this way on purpose, or is this some sort of glitch in the matrix?
That's actually a really good question. I think, well, actually, I know that I chose to retain my memories. When you choose your body, when you choose your life, you do have options. And that was sort of a deal I made with the entities that were sort of, guiding me through this whole process. I let them know, like right when I saw what Earth looked like, I let them know, if I come down to planet Earth, I want to retain my memories. I don't want to lose my memories because, to be straightforward, I was terrified. I was like, I don't want to go down there because I know if I were to forget that there's an afterlife, and I knew if I were to forget my pre-existence, life on Earth would be incredibly difficult. So it was sort of a demand.
It sounds like that this would be your first incarnation here if you were able to make such a demand.
Yeah, I've felt that inside, that it has been my first incarnation. I have tried to do past life regression, and I did discover some things, but I'm not sure exactly, I don't know if I should fully believe what I experienced during that past life regression. I trust what I experienced beforehand more than anything I experienced here, because this place is full of illusion and deception. And we're also filtering our consciousness through these human bodies, which is kind of like a giant resistor. I tell people all the time, like, we're operating on essentially 1% of our capacity here.
So let's start with the very first memory that you have before birth.
Okay. So the very first memory was it felt like waking up from a very long nap. It was just like waking up from the most perfect nap ever. I open my eyes and the first thing I see is just like a golden white light. And I was inside of a golden orb. And I was inside the orb and I was the orb. It was the most comforting, blissful feeling that you could possibly imagine. There's no words to describe the comfort that I was feeling. And it was just utter bliss. And it was so peaceful. I felt so comfortable, so warm. Um, my state of mind was that I was sort of like a child and also super wise at the same time. It was like just a mix of both, just just beaming with love and just so happy to just exist. So I started to sort of, gather myself and look around, and I go and I look at my arm, and it's just kind of like a little bit translucent, I guess. And it was like the arm of a baby, like I was a baby. And then it would sort of shift, and then I would turn into like a teenager and then into an elderly person. I was sort of morphing. And then as I was like changing, I felt the sensation of what it would feel like to be a baby, a teenager, an elderly person. I was just kind of shifting back and forth, feeling those feelings you would feel. And that's initially how the memory started. I just woke up in a golden orb and I just decided to fly around, just float and just exist. And in the back of my mind, I felt a presence um, there with me. And I felt it behind me. And as I started to feel the presence, they started to beckon me over, like, come over here. We want to talk to you. And then right when they started beckoning me over telepathically, I was like, "Uh-oh, I know what's going to happen. I know what they're going to do." And I did not want to go over there because what that meant was is that I was going to be born. Um and they were going to start the process of being born.
Who are these entities?
These entities, I've gone back and forth with this, Jeff, so many times. And I have come to the conclusion that they are your ancestors. They are eternal ancestors that you've known for so long, forever, since the dawn of time. And they are just they're go by many names, guides, family, ancestors. They are there to just process the soul to be born on earth. A lot of people have different ideas as to who these entities are. If you want to call them aliens or anything like that, it's the same thing. They are your ancestors. Because essentially, I believe we all come from the same place. We all come from one source. So they are our ancestors.
So, did you choose this life or did they choose it for you?
I chose my life. I was heavily coerced, make no mistake. I chose my life for sure. I chose my body. Everything that I chose before coming here has come true. And that's in regards to the way I look, the life that I've lived, even down to my intelligence level, my spiritual level, um, everything. Everything has come true. So I absolutely chose my life, and I chose my mother. I chose a timeline. Um, when you're up there, there's a sense that there is no time. Um, I could explain this memory front to back, and it would take maybe about 15 minutes straight. But the time that I spent there felt like, in compared to Earth years, would be like 1,000 years. I could have chose the past. I could have chose the future, but I decided to choose uh, 1985 in California. So, um, yeah, I chose.
What about events in your life? Did you choose those as well?
Specific events, no. It was like an all-encompassing feeling. A lot of people report kind of seeing like screens and they're choosing different things. For me, it was like It happened very quickly. It was like, it was just an all encompassing knowing. I just kind of honed in on my body, I guess you could say. I honed in on this life, and I felt that it would suit me best. Um, for many different reasons. I can go into detail if, if you'd like, but I just, it was an all encompassing honing in on this life. And I didn't see like specific events that would happen. I didn't even see what skin color I was going to be. I just saw Harold, you know, the essence of Harold. And I chose that. And I also specifically chose my mother. I do know that.
Well, what is your purpose this time around? Or at least, what are the lessons you're supposed to learn?
Initially, when I first got a glimpse of Earth and my life, and I do want to talk about what Earth looked like because that was one of the most impactful moments. But um, my purpose, I thought, was to come here and fix this place because, as you know, this place is horrible. And I thought my purpose was to just fix it, just to be a good person, spread love, and to learn as a spirit was the initial understanding of as I was looking down at this place. It was, again, lots of telepathic communication is happening with these guides the entire time. And that was the overall conversation and thought, was that I was supposed to come down here and fix it. But as I learned more about my experience and through others and through learning different things like the soul trap theory, learning about Gnosticism, I've come to the conclusion that this place is not to be fixed. It's impossible to fix this place. I believe that we're supposed to retrieve our loved ones and leave forever. I think that is the goal for every spirit here.
Is it possible that we're just supposed to come here and let things play out and just experience them?
I don't think so. I mean, to learn when we're in that place, we're in the higher realms, we are much more complete. If we're already whole and if we're already loving and caring and complete, why do we need to come to such an inferior existence? This existence, physical reality, is completely inferior to what we really are. So, and on that note, it's just sort of why. Um, I think that this existence was a mistake of some kind, or it was always supposed to happen, and we're supposed to be like, okay, this place can't exist. Now let's all head back home because the injustice that happens here, it seems so pointless. And we come here and we lose our memories. We don't remember who we are, where we come from. We come here and we might not get, who's to say everyone gets to choose, we might not get the best life next time around. We might be a starving child in, a country that has nothing, or worse. I'm sure you've heard horror stories as well, Jeff. The stuff that happens here, underground. It's why? I don't think I personally, from my experience in these higher realms and the things that I'm learning here, lead me to believe this place is a big cosmic mistake and we're supposed to leave.
It sounds like what you're saying is that your ancestors are wanting you to come and reincarnate so you can connect with other members of your soul tribe so you can all leave together.
I think that's a very big possibility. And I think it's also possible that they're just doing it because that's all they know. I think the main theme here is even the entity that created, or not even created this place, molded it. They call, the grand architect, goes by many names, the demiurge. I believe that this entity just exists in pure ignorance. It doesn't even know its true origins. So these ancestors, they're just doing what they know. A lot of people like to talk about if they're malevolent or benevolent. I think it's generally benevolent, and that doesn't sit well with a lot of people because, like, well, why did they send us to suffer? I just think, I feel that they are just doing what they know. You know, they're just playing a role like everybody else.
So is it possible that we're trapped here out of ignorance, not by some force forcing us to be here?
That's correct. I think that that's the answer. And this is not a new revelation. It's something that I've always felt, even before I discovered the soul trap, before I discovered any of this, I've always you just know something's wrong. Nothing makes any sense, and I discovered the lost teachings of Jesus and Gnosticism, and they were talking about this stuff thousands of years ago. It's absolutely mind blowing. This is not a new conversation. It's sort of now starting to gain traction because they're starting to really dissect, the Dead Sea Scrolls and all those lost scriptures. But, it just seems, again, nothing new under the sun. This conversation has been going on for a long, long time. And I personally just hope that we're here and we're going to see the end of it all, because the injustice and suffering is completely pointless to me.
Well, in the beginning, I said that this is a place that stirred both dread and deep purpose. So, is
Yeah.
there anything besides the purpose of leaving here? Is there some other purpose?
I don't think so. I think besides, the very basics, being a good person, treating others how you want to be treated, but that seems to be very difficult for people. I think we need to go back to the basics. Like, let's just be good to each other first, and then if that were to happen, this place wouldn't be how it is. But I don't see that ever happening here. And that's not just me being negative. It's just, look at history. Look at the acceleration and the way things are happening now. It's just endless, and it doesn't get better. It's only getting worse. So I just think that the end goal is to leave this place behind. I think that the human spirit, that our spirit, human, alien, it doesn't matter, our spirits fuel this place. If our energy wasn't here, it would be an inanimate object. So again, I think the end goal is to get out. And that sort of ties into it sort of ties into what I saw before I came here. And I've been so reluctant to tell this part of my story because it's horrible. But I feel people need to know the truth. And what kind of coward would I be to be able to experience something like this, see something like this, and not tell my story, regardless if it ruins my reputation. So I guess to maybe go back to where I was floating around and speaking to these entities telepathically. They were telling me, it's time to go. And there was like a real sense of rush, like it, like some kind of window you have to meet to land into the body or something. It was just constantly like, let's go, it's time to go. And I was really rebellious. I was like, no, I want to go experience this place a little more. So I would float around a bit. And there was a point where I floated up into this space and I was receiving what felt like infinite knowledge just pouring into my head at the speed of light. It was just incredibly fast, like a question and answering thing that was happening for a while. And just that alone felt like, again, heaven. It felt like bliss, just receiving all this information. And I was just telling myself, if I'm going down there, I'm going to take a bunch of stuff with me. I just was absorbing so much information. And then after that happened, that's when they were like, okay, it's time, it's time to go. Let's, we're going to show you Earth. We're going to show you where you're going to go. And this is the part that where the first part where I was absolutely struck with fear. Um, and I want to, again, before I tell this part, for the people that hear it, I'm not telling this to scare people, and I'm not doing this to invoke fear. Um, that's the last thing I want to do. The last thing I want to do is be the bearer of bad news or to make people scared in any way. But what happened was the truth, so I just have to tell it. So they showed me Earth, and initially I was sort of pushed out. So this area it almost felt like a floating island. Well, it was a floating island, and it was like kind of like in a bubble, I guess. It was like a safe zone, and they pushed me out of the bubble, and then as soon as they pushed me out, I was kind of frozen in a T pose. My arms were to the side like this, and a huge gust of wind hit me. Just ice cold wind just hit me, and it felt like an explosion. And I was completely paralyzed with fear. Um, and when this wind hit me, I just see it, and it's just a massive black bubbling mass of pure evil. It's alive. It's huge. It just takes over everything. And that was not just Earth, it was physical reality, what I was seeing. And the sound that was coming off of it was horrific. It took me years to sort of figure out what had happened. It was so traumatic that it was part of my memory that I tried to ignore, I guess. And I'm looking at this, and it's just roaring, and the sound, what it was everyone's fears, anxiety, depression, mourning. It was every single, and love even. It was every single emotion just absolutely exploding out of this place, just hitting me like an explosion. And the sound was horrendous. The feeling it gave me, it penetrated every fiber of my spirit. So how I describe the love there is like indescribable. This fear that I felt was indescribable as well. There's no words that can describe how it felt looking at this thing. And that was the place I was going to go. And I was upset. I was very mad. I turned around and looked at the guides like, bring me back in, because I'm outside of this bubble. So I'm just getting I couldn't even look at it. I'm just trying to turn away the whole time. And, just being hit by this thing. And I asked the guides, bring me back in. So they bring me back in. And that's when I started to plead with them. I said, I don't want to do this. Like this place is horrendous. So, and they were just sort of like, I had a sense from them that they understood, they knew, and like, they know this place is horrible. So they were trying to reassure me. They were just like, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. We know. And I was just, the love that I felt with them gave me a boost, to, ex, you know, to accept my incarnation on earth.
How do you think having the ability to remember your pre-birth affected you compared to someone like me who doesn't have any memories of that?
It's been extremely tough. Um, Again, all I really have is my word. Um, and I've thought about this too. It's like, even if I had proof, like at one point, I also saw this flower. that came back to me through a remembrance. If I were to pluck that flower and bring it back to earth and hold it and present it like this, you wouldn't be able to see it. And there's different dimensions there. There's colors that you can't see. If I had evidence right here, you wouldn't see it. If you were able to extract my memory, and play it on a TV, would you believe it? And especially in this day and age, we have AI, we have the deception that happens here is unbelievable. It's hard to sift through truth. So that in and of itself has been the hardest part, knowing that I'm telling the truth and knowing that it's going to fall on deaf ears. It's going to miss people, not everyone's going to get the message. That's the hardest part. And the way I look at people that don't have their memories, I kind of look at them like brave soldiers, because they didn't really care to retain their memories. Maybe they chose. I know some people are super excited to come here. Um, you know, it's just for me specifically, it's been hard because it's such a bizarre thing. And I always ask myself, why me? Um, and I'm older now, more mature, and I'm just like, well, can't please everybody. Nobody, you're not gonna make everybody like you. So I'm just gonna tell my truth and leave this legacy behind for my family and friends, and that's it.
Do you remember the transition from going from energy into the womb?
Oh yeah, more clear than what I did yesterday. It was horrible. The process of coming down into this body just was a learning experience in and of itself. I learned a lot of things from it. So the process is again, after I saw what Earth was and I was mortified. Uh, After the guides, after these entities calmed me down a bit, I chose my life. That's when I chose my life. I chose my body. And then after I chose my body, they sort of brought me towards the water. And I'm like, up, here we go. I already made the agreement and we're going. And I was not excited at all. Again, the fear started welling up again. And I got inside this pool of water that was covered by this canopy looking deal that had really beautiful, like, Greek architecture. It's just the most beautiful structure you'll ever see. It's like covered in like a diamond, like crystal like substance. It's glowing. It's beautiful. The water itself was absolutely beautiful as well. I get in the water and they're comforting me. They're just loving on me, just, just looking at me like, I guess you could say, looking at me like a soldier or a warrior of some kind, just like, you're going for it. You're going to do this. You're going to be fine. It's going to seem like a really long time here, but from their perspective, it would be seconds. Like, it's almost like I just left. And it feels that way too, to me, even though I kind of go back and forth with that. Because again, I'm 40 years old now and it feels like I've been here for 40 years, but then it doesn't. But I get inside the water and then all of a sudden I just feel like a turbulence building up, like a vibration. And then I get shot down this tunnel. And as I was shooting down this tunnel, it was like accelerating at the speed of light. Like, it just went faster and faster and faster. And just the more I went down, the more scared I got. And the more my memories of that place started to like dissipate. And I started feeling the only way I can describe it is like the compression of my consciousness into this small form. And the more I went down, I guess I could say, the dumber I got, the more blind I got, the less I could hear, the less I can feel. I just my all of my senses were being dulled to the most finite degree. Every inch that I went down, it just like a compression and a loss of my memory and a loss of who I was until I landed in the womb. And that whole process just it felt horrendous. Again, just imagine going from this if it's almost a feeling of freedom, just having all this wisdom and this your all of your senses are firing on all cylinders, and then you're going to being like a blind mole rat. um that's what it felt like, getting squeezed into the human body. And then I was in the flesh and it was just hard. I couldn't breathe. I was confined inside this small space. It felt terrible to be inside of a womb. And then I remember just one glimpse of just sort of seeing like the flesh behind my eyes. I could see the veins and the flesh behind my eyes, and I knew I was inside my mother. She was familiar. I knew her. I knew her scent, and I loved her to death, and that was it. And then I was born. I don't remember the process of being born. And then I just sort of remember coming into consciousness and going out of consciousness through adolescence, I guess. Just, experiencing just different milestones from there.
It's fascinating that you were in this place of Greek architecture because many people during their NDE, or even I've had a guest that was here that had pre-birth memories like you,
Yeah.
talked about being in this place like that.
There's a lot of similarities, and that's another reason why I decided to put my story out there, because I remember how it felt getting that validation, learning that I'm not the only one experiencing this. I went through life just really struggling with this because, again, oh, actually, I don't even know if I mentioned this. I was raised in a Christian household. I went to Christian schools. Um, I was really in deep with the church, and it just didn't jive well. I remember bringing it up to people all the time, and they just didn't have an answer for me. Nobody. It was just like it was the most frustrating feeling having this experience and just like I'm the only one. Like why? Why me? Until the dawn of the internet. If you remember that, Jeff, when we first got the internet, I started to research things, and then I was completely renewed just hearing other people like they had and they do vary, the stories vary a bit, but there's a lot of key points. There's a lot of pattern here. A lot of people recognize that there's three entities, um and they feel a sense of timelessness, and they see a lot of Greek architecture. There's a lot of similarities between all of these experiences for people that have never met. um you know and of course there could be people out there that just make this up, but it just seems kind of bizarre that there's just so many similarities between pre-birth experiencers and between near-death experiencers. A lot of people experience seeing the same things.
Did you see any religious figures on the other side, like Jesus or angels?
No, I did not. I just saw the three entities, and sometimes I feel like the female entity in the middle could have been Mary, but I'm not sure about that. And I don't want to make that claim, but sometimes I just inside I feel like it could have been her, but it wasn't important. It's important to like us now, like we would want to know something like that, but in the moment I knew them forever. So it didn't matter. Um, but yeah, I didn't see Jesus. I didn't see any religious figures or anything like that. Just me and the three entities. That's it.
Throughout the course of your life, have more memories of your pre-birth existence come available, or have you had them all from the beginning?
Yeah, I've had remembrances since then. And that has come about just by hearing other people's details. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember that. A recent remembrance for me was the remembrance of the flower. Again, when I was mentioning that I was floating around, just experiencing bliss, I was observing things. I was kind of floating around. There was like a small meadow, and there was a flower there. And I went to go zoom in on this flower. I wanted to go look at it, and it's a flower that you can't describe. You really can't. I can do my best, but it was like alive, and it was every color you can possibly imagine. It was just the most beautiful thing you could ever set eyes on. And it had like information inside of it. You can look inside of it and it would tell you things in a way. It was just like again, a weird like question and answering thing with a flower, you know? And I feel like a lot of things did that for you in this space. You know, you can go float up to those columns and look at them and just learn things just by observing. It's a very bizarre thing to try to put into words, but that was a remembrance for me. And I've had a lot of different ones since then as well. I could go on for days talking about just the remembrances alone. Um, Another remembrance that it's not very strong and it's going to be very controversial for a lot of people, but I'm going to just say it because I feel there's some kind of validity to it. Since I learned about Gnosticism and I learned how creation could have come about, I feel that I remember existing, being a spirit outside of this massive veil of forgetfulness, because there's a veil that just kind of covers everything, and it's in multiple layers. um i I think I remember being outside of this veil and choosing to come into the veil to again investigate this place and to retrieve spirits. But I'm gonna I'm gonna say this again, that I'm not 100% sure. I don't want to make that claim because it's not right, I guess, you know. But I do feel like I need to say it because it's possible. Um, and I think that's a big deal because it sort of paints a larger picture of this entire construct. You know, I believe that there's just one source, one singular entity that all of creation emanates from. And right outside of that entity, there's a veil of forgetfulness that's been created um, by this entity that created this physical realm. And once you enter it, you forget your true origins and you forget where you come from.
The population keeps growing here, and now we're over 8 billion people. Why is that?
It just seems like creation has just exploded, just like everything emanated from the source, from one singular thing. It split into fragments and it just blew up into just, you know, a freight train of creation. It makes sense when you think about, again, the origin of this world. How did it start happening? It started off with creation. It started off with the the birth of, you know, the god of this world, you know, and then he birthed archons to help create this place, and then they, you know, birthed this material realm, and then Adam and Eve came about, and then Adam and Eve had children, and then it just kept going on and on and on and on until we're here. um it just seems like a natural progression of this absolute this chaos that we find ourselves in.
Do you ever miss the other side?
Yes. I do. And then I'm also very protective of myself and other people with that information because I don't want people to think that they have to keep coming here to fix their karmas. What karma did I have before coming here? I had none. I gained karma by being in this horrible place. You know, a baby is pure. A baby doesn't turn into a serial killer just out of nowhere. It's life circumstances. Um, I I I miss the freedom of not being confined in the human body. Um, if I don't have to interact with any entity outside of this place ever again and just going home or just being left alone, that is going to be my goal. And I think it should be everybody's goal. Uh, I want to be free again. I don't want to be confined in the human body ever again. It makes no sense at all. I remember, again, being a free spirit and just having all that wisdom and love and freedom, not having to eat. And I could go on for days on what I think about these human bodies. I just think it's a ridiculous. Uh, I think it's a ridiculous existence compared to being a free spirit. So I miss it in the sense that I miss I miss the feeling of love I had with them, with my guides, and that sense of familiarity and safety. But if it means incarnating here ever again, I'd never want to see anybody again. I just want to be left alone and go home, or you know, just be done with this whole construct.
What is your plan of escaping this realm once you cross back over?
Yeah, a lot of people have their own little spiels on this for sure. Um, it's a difficult answer. There's a lot of different ways that this can happen. We can have a plan, right now in the flesh, but the moment we die, all of our plans and motivations could just be out of the window. We are so different compared to these human bodies. We're so completely different that we can make a plan right now, the most perfect plan to get out of this construct. But when it happens, when the time comes and you die, your spirit self is going to know what to do a lot more than Harold, a lot more than Jeff, a lot more than anybody that hears this. Because right now we're not operating to our fullest capacity. So, but if you were to ask me, Harold, my Harold self, I'm going to go within. I'm going to go with what they said thousands of years ago and studied. You know, the kingdom of heaven, they say, is within you because you are a fragment of the whole. So to get there, you just go within. Um, what exactly that means, not entirely sure, but again, our spirit self is going to know what to do.
Were you ever aware of future events and then seen them to come to pass?
Yes. Um, I've had a lot of premonitions and visions here, but nothing very cool, believe it or not. I think it's also because I choose not to channel that stuff. I'm deeply afraid of misleading people. Um, so I don't like to be spouting off all these predictions and things like that. I think it's irresponsible, but I can say that I had a huge premonition in my pre-birth experience, and it was upon choosing my life and choosing this timeline. And it was an understanding that I was going to witness a massive, massive event on Earth. And that's another reason why I reached out to you, Jeff, is because I just wanted to say that and put that out there just for people's information. Especially number one, if this event does not happen and I pass away, then that was some sort of deception that happened, because it was very clear to me that I was supposed to come down and witness an event that it basically eclipses all events that have ever happened on Earth. Anything, any world war, any it 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 overshadows anything that has ever happened. And I wish I can give you specifics, I don't know what the event is. I don't know. And in a strange way, I'm I possibly I possibly did know before I came. Or people are not going to like this at all, but I possibly chose not to see the event because it was like, again, we're really brave when we're in these, when we're in our spirit body. We're very brave and daring. I feel that I possibly chose not to see it because I was just like, well, if I'm already going down to that, what I saw beforehand, might as well just be surprised and see what this event is. I know it sounds crazy, but I believe that's what happened.
So you do believe it's going to happen.
I do. Yes, everything has come true that I saw in my pre-birth experience. So I am certain that something is going to happen. I can feel it, um, and it's crazy because let's say it happens. I'm probably not going to be able to get to say I told you so. You know, it's just going to happen, and that's it. So, but still, if it doesn't happen, that means there's a clear deception going on, and people should know. So,
Do you have a timeline for this?
no, I felt I felt instinctually that it would have happened a long time ago. I've always kind of looked on the horizon, like waiting. I'm like, is it going to be nukes? Is it going to be just a massive earthly cosmic event? Like, what is it? I don't know. I've always felt like it should have happened a long time ago. Um, but I feel again, everything that I chose in this life has happened perfectly. It has happened exactly how I saw it. So I almost have no doubt that we will witness something that's just going to change either humanity forever. This construct is going to end. Something massive is going to happen.
So you feel like you came here to experience it, but you just chose not to remember.
Yep. It's possible. Yes. I either chose not to remember or it was taken upon arrival. A lot of that stuff, a lot of information has definitely been fragmented because again, the human body is a massive resistor. We're operating, I need people to understand, we are operating about 1% of our true capacity. And there's a saying, I don't know who coined it exactly. I think it was Manly P. Hall, and I don't want to ruin it, but I think it was something like, we are not drops in an ocean. We are an ocean inside of a drop. And that saying resonates with me so deeply because these human bodies can hardly contain what you really are inside. And it's a huge difference. So
Do you have any advice for the people out there?
yeah, I do. I I I would say that number one, seek truth in all things. There's truth in everything. Don't have such a knee-jerk reaction to information that you receive, especially if you don't like it. Use your discernment. You know, go down multiple rabbit holes if you want, but do it from a safe distance. Do it from an observation standpoint. Don't let all this fear corrupt you. This world is full of illusion. It's full of, I'm just going to say it if I can, Jeff. It's full of injustice, but don't become the world. You know, treat others how you want to be treated. Um, just because this place is horrendous doesn't mean you should take it out on other people or other things because you're no better than this place if you decide to live your life like that. So treat others how you want to be treated. I think that's advice I'd want to give. And seek truth. Don't be afraid of the truth. And for some reason, I just want to say I just know everything's going to be okay.
Well, what do you hope people take away with from your story?
Again, that there's more to this world than what meets the eye. There's lots of ways you can confirm this information. You can have out of body experiences. You can attempt astral projection. You can meditate and try to possibly retain your memories as well. There's a lot of ways to peer outside of this illusion. And I don't want to recommend too much, but I'm sure you can get the idea. There's ways to blast out of your body. There's ways to confirm that this world is not what it seems. So, with my story in mind, just, you know, you use discernment and go down those rabbit holes and learn for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Information's out there. There's evidence everywhere if you choose to look.
After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that?
Oh, of course. I didn't want to do like a cheesy, promo of my channel, but I did. I just started my own channel. It's called End of Agnoia, and Agnoia means ignorance. So my goal with my channel, with most likely other contributors, is to end ignorance as much as we possibly can, and that is by sifting through all this muddy information we find ourselves in and trying to look at all things through a different perspective. So you can reach out to me on my YouTube channel, and on my channel have an email as well. So if you want to reach out to me, if you have any questions, I'll post my email as well. I'm an open book.
Is there anything else besides your YouTube channel that you want people to know about?
I think for now, that's probably just about it. I just want people to, again, whether if you're an atheist, you're a scientist, you're a Christian, you're a Satanist, whatever you believe in, just don't stop searching for the truth. Don't settle. Don't settle with one bit of information. You'll be surprised. Your whole world can change really quickly with information. I thought having this experience gave me an advantage over people. I've always used this thing as a band-aid, until the Soul Trap community reached out to me and they were like, "Hey, what about this?" And I was just like, it flipped my whole world upside down. And it's just one of those things I highly recommend, that you just keep searching for the truth. Don't be afraid of change. And I think I would want to leave you with that. Don't remain ignorant, because if you're ignorant to your true origins, and if you don't like coming here, you can end up just, reincarnating over and over again. So search for the truth. It's there.
Harold, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Mr. Jeff, thanks for having me. It's been an honor. I really like what you're doing with your channel. Just giving people like me a platform is really cool. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Well, thank you, and it was my honor having you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.